Quinn had begun to understand the depth of his system, yet every revelation only seemed to open more questions than answers. The first skirmishes had tested his reflexes and strategy, but the challenges that awaited were far more intricate. Night after night, shadows shifted around him, some familiar, some unknown. Each enemy he faced taught him that raw power alone could not protect him. Intelligence, perception, and patience were equally vital. The academy became a theater of constant trials. Quinn's peers, each with their own systems and powers, pushed him to limits he had never imagined. Some were friends, some rivals, and some wore the thin mask of allies while plotting their own gains. Every encounter, even the seemingly trivial ones, contained lessons hidden beneath the surface. He learned to watch carefully, to listen to whispered hints, to anticipate the moves of those who might strike when he least expected it. One evening, a senior vampire approached him with an unusual offer. The figure radiated power, their presence alone commanding attention. Yet there was no malice in the invitation. Instead, they spoke of the Crimson Trials, a series of challenges that had shaped the strongest in the vampire world for centuries. Quinn hesitated, knowing that each trial was rumored to be deadly. The system buzzed within him, evaluating probabilities, calculating risks, and yet curiosity and ambition overcame fear. This was the path to mastery, and he could not turn away. The Crimson Trials began in a remote location, hidden by an eternal mist that seemed to absorb light itself. Quinn navigated the labyrinthine halls and shadowy corridors, feeling the system guide his every step. Each trial was designed not just to test strength, but perception, wit, and resolve. He faced illusions that challenged his memory, puzzles that twisted reality, and enemies who could anticipate his moves before he made them. The first trial ended with him barely escaping a creature that mimicked his own abilities, forcing him to rethink the limits of his power and the trust he placed in his instincts. Emerging from the mist, Quinn found himself in a chamber filled with ancient glyphs and inscriptions. The system highlighted patterns he could scarcely comprehend, revealing the layered history of vampires and the origin of these trials. Every detail seemed significant, and the pressure to understand it all weighed heavily on him. But Quinn thrived under pressure. Slowly, methodically, he deciphered the inscriptions, unlocking latent abilities he hadn't known he possessed. Energy pulsed through him, flowing with the rhythm of the system, enhancing his senses, refining his reflexes, and sharpening his mind. When the next trial arrived, it was not an enemy to defeat, but a companion to test his loyalty and moral judgment. The system prompted multiple solutions, each carrying consequences he could scarcely predict. Quinn hesitated, weighed options, and finally acted with a combination of strategy and empathy. The trial rewarded him, unlocking a previously dormant tier of abilities, reinforcing the lesson that power without conscience was hollow. The battles grew increasingly complex. Quinn faced opponents whose abilities defied understanding, each fight a delicate dance of timing, perception, and tactical thinking. Some vampires could manipulate shadow itself, forming weapons from nothingness. Others controlled the mind, twisting reality to disorient even the most focused. Quinn's system adapted, suggesting strategies in milliseconds, highlighting weaknesses, calculating outcomes, but it was his own intuition and courage that ultimately determined victory. Amidst the growing chaos, alliances deepened. One of his peers, a cunning strategist with a system focused on elemental control, became a close companion. Together, they analyzed opponents, tested tactics, and shared insights that sharpened both their abilities. Trust was tentative but powerful. Quinn understood that even the strongest system could fail without a reliable ally. Together, they faced the trials of fire and frost, illusion and deception, growing stronger with each encounter. During one particularly harrowing mission, Quinn confronted a vampire who had lived through centuries of warfare, possessing both intelligence and experience far beyond his own. The battle was unlike anything he had faced before. Quinn's system analyzed, adapted, and proposed every possible maneuver, but the opponent anticipated many of them. Only by thinking outside the confines of the system, by exploiting patterns the enemy did not expect, did he prevail. That victory was a turning point. Quinn realized the system was not just a guide, it was a tool, but true mastery required his own creativity, insight, and courage. As Quinn advanced, the political intricacies of the vampire world became increasingly apparent. Factions vied for influence, ancient pacts dictated behavior, and betrayals were common among even the most respected. Each mission he undertook revealed layers of power and deceit. Quinn learned to navigate diplomacy alongside combat, negotiating with factions whose motives were often obscured by centuries of history and secrecy. The system continued to evolve alongside him, unlocking abilities that allowed him to perceive threats before they manifested and to manipulate both energy and probability. He discovered powers that let him influence emotions subtly, alter environments temporarily, and even glimpse fleeting glimpses of the future. But each power came with cost and responsibility. Over-reliance could blind him to unseen dangers, and misuse could turn allies into enemies. Quinn's growth became a delicate balance of strategy, restraint, and insight. In the deepest shadowed corners of the vampire hierarchy, Quinn uncovered hidden enemies, rogues who had rejected the ancient codes, creatures driven solely by ambition and malice. Their encounters were ruthless, testing every aspect of his training and his resolve. In these trials, Quinn's courage shone brightest. He learned not only to defend, but to anticipate, not only to strike, but to protect, becoming a force that inspired loyalty and respect. Each victory and loss shaped Quinn further. He reflected often, considering not just the immediate consequences, but the long-term impact of his actions. His system guided him, yes, but his judgment, empathy, and foresight defined his path. Shadows whispered warnings and secrets alike, and every night brought the possibility of danger and discovery. Yet Quinn remained undeterred, driven by a vision of mastery and understanding that extended beyond mere survival. In time, the final stages of the Crimson Trials arrived. Quinn faced challenges that combined every lesson he had learned: combat, strategy, ethics, diplomacy, and intuition. The chamber where he confronted the final trial radiated with an energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Every decision, every action mattered. The trial tested not just his strength, but his character, his courage, and his ability to lead. The climax of the trial brought Quinn face to face with an adversary who embodied the full potential of the vampire system. Every maneuver was countered, every strategy anticipated. Yet Quinn's insight, creativity, and mastery of both system and self allowed him to prevail. The victory unlocked not only new powers, but an understanding of the delicate balance between authority, responsibility, and survival. Emerging from the trials, Quinn was no longer the quiet, overlooked boy from an orphanage. He was a force of intellect, strategy, and power, tempered by experience and conscience. Allies and mentors recognized his growth, and even former rivals approached with a newfound respect. The system, now fully integrated into his being, pulsed in harmony with his decisions, ready to respond to challenges both known and unforeseen. And yet, the world remained vast and full of shadows. Ancient secrets, hidden enemies, and unpredictable forces still lurked beyond the veil of perception. Quinn understood that mastery was not an endpoint, but a journey. Each mission, each battle, each alliance and betrayal added to his understanding, shaping him into a figure of legend in a world hidden from ordinary sight.